Modulators are a pretty easy thing to grasp in sound design, and it's assumed that you know the basics. But now we're going to explore some interesting variations and deviations from the norm. To begin with, in our section on modulators, we're going to simply take what we already know and look at a new level of usage. We're going to modulate a modulator. So, modulators or mod sources are in general thought of as having a very direct effect on the sound, i.e., an envelope controlling volume or an LFO controlling pitch, etc. While these effects are obvious and are incredibly useful, to get deeper into programming synthesizers, we need to begin thinking in slightly more abstract terms. Mod sources have a number of variables which we can configure to get the effect that we want. Certainly the volume or the amount of the source going to a destination is one of those variables. The amount of an LFO going to pitch can make the difference between a subtle vibrato effect and a giant sci-fi style sweep. Envelope curves and LFO shapes are another configurable aspect of these mod sources. The other parameters are more temporal or time-based. For example, the length of attack or decay on an envelope, or the rate of an LFO. Most people, when employing modulators, tend to use the kind of direct effects that we talked about a second ago, assigning one modulator to one destination, setting the amount, and leaving it. Many times, some of these variables will be controlled using track automation within the DAW, which can be a time-consuming and fairly archaic task. Under the hood, many synths and samplers contain a mod matrix, or an expanded series of menus for secondary or tertiary destinations for modulators to be sent to. This is where a lot of the less obvious routings can happen. These menus can be intimidating, but don't be afraid of them. At the start of your exploration, you'll end up frequently using only about 10% of the options contained in a powerful matrix or modulation routing system, and that's totally fine. But when you step outside your comfort zone and start including new choices, you'll really discover the depth of the instrument that you're working with. Oftentimes within your modulation routings, you'll find the ability to send the output of a modulator to another modulator. This isn't a direct effect anymore, i.e., you aren't using a mod source to directly control the signal anymore. You're using it to control something else, which is then controlling the signal. Some of these routings can be very simple to program, but can produce complex sounding results. And hearing is believing, so we're going to have a listen to some of the uses of this modulation on modulation effect. We're going to go through our examples in Ableton's sampler here. It's a common instrument, and it has some simple-to-use modulation capabilities, but still offers the depth of programmability that we'd find in a powerful synth with a nicely featured mod matrix. So, to illustrate these points, we're going to just play with a simple sawtooth wave and play it over a bar or so, with some adjustments of modulation amounts, types, and routings, just to hear different effects. So to start with, let's roll down the cutoff on the filter and add some resonance, and then we're going to take a simple sine wave LFO and map it to the filter cutoff. This is the simplest modulation configuration, a direct modulation of one destination by one source. Now let's create a more complex motion by mapping another LFO to the first LFO's rate. By choosing a sine wave as our second LFO, we can hear an acceleration and deceleration in the first LFO's rate, which is affecting the filter. By changing the rate of the second LFO, we change the rate of the first LFO's fluctuation. Pulse waves are an excellent sound design tool for this kind of complex routing, as they provide an either-or modulation source. The low point of the wave's cycle outputs one value, while the high part outputs another. This is a convoluted way of saying that while sine waves move up and down slowly like a roller coaster, the pulse or square wave doesn't. This means that you can have whatever you're modulating it with jump between two values. In this case, we're going to have a pulse wave cause the sine wave to jump from quarter note to 16th note, mapped to the filter cutoff at a rate of a half note. Working off the grid, or with non-quantized rates, allows for some great expressive sweeps to be created without the stepping that you'd get from jumping the rate up and down if you're locked to the tempo of the track. In this case, we can adjust the speed of the square wave fluidly by moving its rate up and down. Taking things a step further, we can automate a tempo sweep of the square wave with an envelope, so that our square wave slows down over time. The square wave's effect on the sine wave causes the sine wave's effect on the filter to change, with the modulation spending longer and longer periods at quarter and 16th note values. In this case, we have a modulator controlling a modulator controlling a modulator. You can quickly hear how this kind of mapping can simulate automation changes that might traditionally be done with a mod wheel, etc. It's an extremely powerful tool, especially when used to automate subtle changes or control elements like panning. The ability to map a modulator to another modulator greatly increases your ability to program complex sounds.